requires a really good play, but we're going to jump right into game number 1 of our top 16 feature match between Cameron Neal and Pete Navarro. Cam's gonna roll an 11, Pete's gonna roll a 6. Looks like Cam's gonna choose to go first.
He showed his excitement, you know, raised his fist, like, yes, I won the die roll here.
I think he was pointing at himself.
Oh.
With like a thumb. But yeah, I do like the raise of a fist pump as a win. Kind of reminiscent of the World Championship not too long ago. I guess now it's been forever ago.
It's been like 9 years
it was
ago,
the Dragon Rule. It's been like it doesn't seem like that long ago, but here we go. Let's start things off with one of my favorite cards, Fright for Patchwork. Definitely a fantastic one. He's going to be able to add Edge of Sabers and polymerization from his deck to the hand.
You know, we talk about a list like Pete. He's trying to take advantage of the positive effects that you can use from your hand. The ones that have fallen somewhat out of favor, but he's still using them. The Ash Blossoms, Joy Springs, the Bestial Monsters, the Effect Veilers even, which is something even rarer we haven't seen this tournament, but all in Pete's deck. What was really strong against those types of cards were the branded strategy, unless excluding specifically Ash Blossom on branded fusion.
I do see an Ash Blossom in Pete's hand.
That's good.
Ooh, that could prove quite impactful here. As long as Cameron is able to bait it out first or set up some form of interruption here, then he's able to try to resolve a really powerful branded fusion. That's a Keeper of Dragon Magic as well, another really powerful way of getting to that branded fusion. So Cameron really focusing on accessing branded fusion, because when that card resolves in this strategy, it sets up everything.
It really does. You're sitting down the Beast of the Lubellion, tripping off an Albion that you fusion from your field to also get the effect at the end phase to set. Just really, really cool. Hopefully we can see some of those interactions here.
We do see a Druisworm going up, I assume after the Merly. Yeah, cutting off one of those tier limit names early. Now, this is one of those, like, the Bestials are as powerful as how limited the tier limit engine is, right? If it's mostly a tier limit deck, then every single one is so crazy impactful. But when you have these other strategies in it, when you build this bigger deck filled with a lot of resources, a lot of mixture of engines, then the Bestials are less relevant. Like, the one Merly is not going to hurt as bad when you have all these other engines functioning.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. You could use other themes to kind of fill the gaps that your pure deck might not have options to. So let's see. Not a great hand here from Cameron. I just see the polymerization, the Edge of Sabers, a Branded Red, and the Bestial Monster. But he looks like he is going to use polymerization. So he can do Guardian Chimera now, actually. Because normally you can't Guardian Chimera because you'd have to destroy a card to be able to draw your cards. You have to do all the effects. But since there is that Bestial on the field, he could go into Guardian Chimera, destroy the Bestial, is it a Druisworm, and then draw 2 cards.
Yeah, and the Druisworm will not be able to use its effect on the Chimera because there will be a polymerization in the graveyard.
Wow, so we're getting to see a turn 1 Guardian Chimera that actually gets to use its effect. That's actually really cool.
He hopefully arranges the chain link in a proper way so that Ash Blossom does not cut this Chimera off too early.
1 Chimera.
There you go.
2 Sharon, 3 Chain.
Yep. Resolving it in the proper order, always playing around a copy.
We're basically seeing exactly what you were talking about, how normally something like a Bestial could completely cut off a tier limit strategy, but this polymerization gets him to continue to play. He's not only getting the draws from the Guardian Chimera, he's also getting to fuse with the Sharon as well.
I wonder what he's going to try to make with the Sharon, because he could go for Mud Dragon, but I just don't feel like that's worth anything, unless he's potentially going into something along the lines of Curious.
Okay, so
now we have to fix the chain.
Oh, the other
So
copy of
were you
Patchwork did hit the graveyard off of Edge of Chain, so not going to be able to resolve that effect here.
So Sharon and Chimera too?
Yep. No. Yeah, he did not.
Have a real target factoration, so chain link 1 Sharon, chain link 2
Chimera,
Chimera.
Oh, chain link 1, chain link 2. Okay, okay, that's fine then.
Yep, he still wants to make sure that Guardian Chimera is hidden by the Sharon.
Yep.
I feel like maybe Sharon just goes into Draco Stapelia here and puts back the Chimera. Or is the 3300 untargetable body just good enough?
I like leaving, especially with Brandon and Red, you can just summon another Guardian Chimera in the next one. Well, he doesn't have a way to use Brandon. I was like, no, he's Fallen Alabaz. He built a Fallen Alabaz off of the first Sharon summon. So yeah, I like having Guardian Chimera face up with the Brandon Red. So you just always, the more monsters you have in your field, the easier it is for your opponent, to stop your opponent from playing around Brandon Red for a Guardian Chimera. Because the best way is you make sure they have no monsters on the field. They won't be able to make Guardian Chimera with Brandon Red.
So, speaking to that, with the tier limit monsters just being such a heavy part of the extra, I feel like most strategies will not have room for 2 Guardian Chimeras.
That's probably true. I'm still thinking of my pure Brandon Despia deck.
So it's almost a guarantee that he puts it back. Or actually, you know, what would be a somewhat interesting play is he could technically use the Fallen of Alabaz to go for something like Lubellion. Not as useful though when you have to put back the Alabaz, so you're not going into something like Mirror Jet unless you have another Alabaz somewhere. But it looks like he's just going to opt to go for the Mud Dragon here. And then get the draw to destroy the Druisworm. Not going to be able to target either of those.
Yeah. Oh, you can target this. Huh?
Is it dark yet?
It's water. You can't target water.
Oh yeah, water's the one. Yeah, that's fine.
Can't target water and can't target Chimera. Has nothing to be able to send down a Druid Storm here.
That is the main reason why you probably don't want to use Sharon to get rid of the Chimera. You want to make sure the Druid Storm is getting no value at all.
Makes a lot of sense.
Oh, and he drew a Perloreno.
You have 2 in hand right now, right?
Yes.
We have used the effect of Sharon and Merly, but certainly a normal summon Rhino Heart can get a lot further here.
I'm a big fan of these 60 card decks. It's just anytime you play someone with 60 cards, you know one thing is for sure, they have power in their deck. It's not just going to be usually like a glass cannon strategy. It's the 60 cards for a reason because the extra 20 cards are all just powerful cards.
Yeah, generally all gas, all just an additional engine.
Let's see, he's going to use Albion here. See what he decides to send from his deck here. Maybe Brandon and Beast. Yeah, I was going to go for Brandon Beast.
No,
Brandon Retribution. Sorry.
Makes a lot of sense here. When you usually this means that there's a high spirits package. So one of the key plays with Brand Retribution with Albion as well is when you're able to resolve a high spirits. Usually that means you're summoning Kit, and Kit is going to get Merly. You can summon the Merly. You're hitting 8 cards, right? So the Albion with Retribution, you're either going to send Retribution or you're going to send Brand Infusion, and you're going to get either one of those. So just even more ways to get Brand Infusion into your hand, but then you don't actually open it naturally.
Yeah, and with 60 cards in your deck, you have less of a chance of opening up with those 1-ofs you don't want to draw. It's so weird. So we used to play 40 cards because we wanted to see our 1-ofs. We wanted the Pot of Greed, we want the Monster Born, the Heavy Storm, you know. But now there's a lot of 1-ofs you just don't want to see. The cards you want to see are all 3-ofs in your deck. So when you increase your deck size, you have a less chance of drawing those bricks, as it were.
Yeah, there's not many powerful 1-ofs in that kind of realm anymore. A lot of the most powerful cards are at 3.
Oh, Instant Fusion has something to say.
Instant Fusion and Call by the Grave, I think, are the 2 that stand the test of time.
Definitely. Fool's Burial, it's not as impactful, but sometimes pretty powerful. Definitely not on the same level, maybe. But we do see a Nimble Beaver coming down to summon Nimble Angler. Not the greatest turn 1, though, here for Cam. But, you know, with the having to play through the Ash Blossom plus the Bestial can be tough.
Special summon blue?
Sure.
Trigger blue?
So now, since he has level 2 monsters on the field, he can special summon Sprite Blue from his hand, and Sprite Blue on summon is going to add a Sprite monster.
You know what would be an interesting play at any point is using the red to add back the Albest to just go straight into Mirror Jade.
Mirror Jade is the best. I love Mirror Jade. It's probably my favorite card to be released in, like, as of recently. Well, Mirror Jade and Guardian Chimera. I'm just a really big fan, not only of their artworks, but just of how powerful they are as fusion monsters.
Yeah, I imagine whenever the Gigantic Sprite is going to be summoned here, the effect of red will be used, trying to go into the Mirror Jade, and people have to use essentially 2 cards to really deal with it. If he ever removes it without putting it back in the extra deck of some way, it's going to trigger its effect and try to remove all monsters he controls during the end phase.
Yeah, and don't get me started on, ad libitum. Bringing back the Mirror Jade when you make the Guardian Chimera. I probably won't see it here because it's not as pure of a branded deck, but I love branded so much. But we do see a special summon Sprite Jet that's going to be able to add a Speller Trap. I didn't see what he had, but I think it was Smashers.
I think it was Starter.
Oh,
actually.
Starter? Okay. Yeah, he hasn't used Starter yet.
I think he should use Starter right now to try to get access to Carrot.
33 defense, 38.
He does have triple tactic talents as well.
I don't think Cam is in any position to really be forced into do anything until that Starter is activated. But even then, once the Mirror Jade hits the field, he doesn't have a reason to use it until Gigantic Sprite is summoned. But once that Gigantic Sprite is summoned, it's likely going to force the Mirror Jade, and I will imagine that Triple Tactics is going to take the Mirror Jade, and that's the most efficient way to remove it from the field. So
Just take it to yourself. Change of heart.
Yeah. Personally, I really like Enemy Controller. I think that's what I mainly use it for. But yeah, we talk about that kind of effect in all these times. Not quite with your Turbo Synchron, but good enough.
Nitro Warrior.
Oh, sorry.
Turbo Synchron is a good card, though, but Nitro Warrior. Put some respect on his name.
All right. Shouldn't have brought it up.
I told you. I warned you. But the League Summon here coming down for Sprite Elf with Nimble Beaver and Nimble Angler. Now it looks like Pete is going to target Nimble Angler with Sprite Elf.
Interesting. Maybe he's trying to play around something along the lines of Infinite Impermanence. Doesn't know what to expect here. Going for 3,200 attack. Chimera or Gigantic Sprite. I'm thinking about how he's going to try to go after this Chimera. The only thing that can really get over it is Smashers.
Yeah, I mean, 3,300 defense, no joke.
3,300 attack, 3,300 defense.
No, can't be targeted.
I guess if he ever goes to attack mode, Pixies will deal with it. But
so you were right about the timing on the Brandon Red. He decided this is the time he wants to try and make Mirror Jade. He's probably going to use the Mud Dragon, right?
Yeah, I think leaving the Chimera on as a threat is pretty relevant here.
Mirror Jade does take Fallen of Albaz plus 1 extra monster. Brandon Red adds back a Despia or a Fallen of Albaz from your graveyard to your hand, and then you can banish monsters to fusion summon a monster from your extra deck, and he's going to go for Mirror Jade. Materials from Mirror Jade are fallen out Albaz plus any extra deck monster, essentially.
Chain, Mirror Jade,
And
cost.
now he's going to use Mirror Jade's effect to send Alba Lenatus to the graveyard. So at the end phase, he's going to be able to add a fusion spell.
Which is better than Albion in this case, because it doesn't just add branded fusion, it could add instant fusion.
Ooh, that's really cool. In this deck, that is really cool. Being able to add instant fusion, and oh man.
Yeah, imagine this.
So he's going to use Mirror Jade to banish with Mirror Jade's quick effect.
It's going to be important to note that he chained it to the effect of Gigantic Sprite, so we're not going to see any more Bestials for the rest of the turn. We're not going to be able to see really any more play from Cameron, and I think he allowed Pete to know that by chaining it to the Gigantic's effect. But it also just means that he's not going to be able to resolve Gigantic ever again this turn.
Pete's Treble Tactics talent is online now since Mirror Jade's effect was used.
He's going to have to use it to try to take the Mirror Jade, I imagine.
He could take Guardian Chimera and attack over the Mirror Jade.
But then it's still going to...
Triggers the effect, yeah.
I just don't think Pete can ever accept not having any monsters at the end phase into a either instant fusion or branded fusion. Like, either of those cards are going to be really hard for Pete to deal with.
That's what's the best part about the branded mirror match, is if your opponent uses Mirror Jade's effect to destroy it, you have branded opening to protect your stuff anyway. But not going to be the case here. But we do see Triple Tactics talents coming down. And you're right, take control. Is it going to be the Mirror Jade?
It doesn't really have much of a choice. I think the Mirror Jade is just doing way too much. And that's the power of Mirror Jade in this matchup. When I was playing Sprite, I was so deathly afraid of the branded strategy because Mirror Jade requires you to always use 2 cards to even just try to deal with it, which is why I think Carrot is such an important card. I honestly think Pete should have led with Starter. Really hope Cameron makes a mistake. Obviously, he doesn't know it's a red, but I think just putting Carrot on the field dealt with whatever that spell and trap would be pretty effectively.
Yeah, a lot of times you do know it's red because of Albion, but that wasn't the case here in this previous turn. You're right. But you do see that Link summon with the Mirror Jade and the Sprite Blue to summon Dark, the Dark Charmer Gloomy.
Oh, I wonder if he's going to just make it his Mirror Jade now.
He could.
But
he doesn't have any, probably have any Fallen Albaz extra cards to really capitalize on it.
What? Leonidas.
Oh, Leonidas, I guess.
Yeah, he's using Alba Lenatus to add. Is it going to be the instant fusion? Maybe it'll just be the branded fusion anyways.
I feel like instant fusion just kind of... There's more access
Past the
points.
branded fusion. So.
Yeah. There's way more access points to branded fusion than there are to instant fusion. He still has the retribution engraved. He can go after the red if he wants to, but I feel like if he finds a way to throw branded fusion into the graveyard with all the numerous effects that send cards to the graveyard, he can just rely on that instead.
Yeah, Avalon is just a fantastic card. Not only to mention, like, you can contact fuse with dragons, and I don't know if you've noticed, there's some dragons running around after Darkwing Blast. The Bestial monsters, all dragons.
Yeah, that'd be a nice little use. It's always dangerous to play a strategy like Dragon Link when a card like Albonatus exists, but because it's fallen out of popularity, you don't really have to worry about it, but Cam is here making sure people are sweating.
Top 16. It's probably my favorite deck I've seen so far. I mean, I'm biased towards 60-card decks.
Standby.
In the standby phase. Main phase 1. Initiative is to Cam.
Oh, there is also Keeper of Dragon Magic, so like either fusion will be able to be immediately accessed based on what he wants to prioritize to resolve at this point.
Yeah, you definitely want to lead with the instant fusion just because it's known knowledge for sure.
First damage, correct?
Yeah.
He could also just go after the spell and trap immediately as soon as he triggers an actual tier effect because he still has the Pearl Reno face up, a card that we keep talking about how powerful it is, just residual effects. Like, obviously the search is so impactful, but...
It's not as, I mean, it's great, but that pop, oh my gosh, so huge. Which is such a weird dynamic, yeah. Because you'd think a field spell to add the theme, like, I mean, it is incredible, but yeah, that all of the planets that have that extra effect to destroy, if you can capitalize on that and incorporate it into your strategy, like you were mentioning it with the Scareclaw field spell as well, you can just out things like Mystic Mine or those troublesome continuous trap cards that might be giving you any sort of problems.
Looks like Cam is going straight for the Rhino Heart here. I believe Kit is just going to use its effect right now, if there's nothing from Pete's end. I think, is the set known to be starter at this point? Has he just not used it?
I would assume it was if I was Cam. Man, Mirror Jade is so good. Disrupted the opponent's turn, added instant fusion to the hand, which led him to summon Kictalis to mill 5. Summon Keeper of Dragon Magic is going to be able to discard to add for a polymerization, a fusion spell.
Normal with fusion is name.
Fusion, yeah, that's right.
So this is actually another interesting thing is he has several ways to summon back this Rhino Heart right now. He can use the effect of Kickalos. He can also use the other effect of Keeper of Dragon Magic to put it face down on the field by revealing Kaleido Heart.
Oh, wow, that's really cool.
I don't think that'll ever come up here, but that is something that he has the option to do.
Resolution.
On res of pattern, chain,
That's fine.
Yeah, this is going to get him a copy of, I imagine, Sprite Carrot, but that's not really good enough right now when a tier effect is going to activate. Like, is he going to go for Sprite Red instead? That's not going to do very much. Nope. There's the carrot.
30,000.
I don't know about you, Billy, but I'm willing to bet that Pete will take 7,000 more damage this turn.
It's not looking good for him. But he's a true duelist, doing what he can with the cards he has.
So, you know when the Keeper of Dragon Magic could actually come up here is if... Actually, he might not even have to use Kickless's effect. But like, let's say this got met with something along the lines of effect failure, right? He could use Keeper of Dragon Magic, summon back the Rhinoheart face down, and then activate Polymerization, fuse the Kit and the Rhinoheart, trigger both their effects after summoning Rule Close. Like,
The synergy.
yeah. Okay, so we hit Branded Opening and Branded Banishment.
Branded Banishment, a fantastic trap card. Lets you add back a Despia and then fusion someone with your opponent's monsters.
Serenir is also there, going to be able to send another copy of potentially like Branded Regained in this instance. If he wants to go for Branded Beast, he could.
122.
And also just gets to protect the Havness here from something along the lines of Ghost Bell that has to be chained directly to it.
Yeah, just yep.
I feel like this Retribution now has a really fine target in going after the Branded Banishment. Being able to turn any two of the Thunder types into Garura, pretty strong, able to summon back that Mirror Jade that's just sitting in grave, waiting to come back.
Indeed. I'm glad to see Branded Regained here. We saw people playing just 2 copies of Branded Beast, but I really like Branded Regained. It's kind of like a gift that keeps on giving. It's a continuous spell, and if a light or dark monster is banished from either player, you can return that card to the deck and draw a card once per turn. And if your opponent summons a monster, you can special summon back a Beastial from your graveyard once per turn.
Yeah, a lot of really powerful effects here. Looks like Cam is opting to go immediately for the Kaleido Heart. He's going to shuffle back 3 Tier Elements monsters. He's going to be able to trigger the effect of the Kaleido Heart as well as the field spell here.
So he's going to be able to clear both monsters and still has the Branded Fusion in hand.
Right, does it in the appropriate order where Carrot cannot be used at all, leaving Pete on nearly no cards here. And then, of course, Branded Fusion will clean this up very nicely. He'll get access to Lebellion as well. I want to see just how far this Branded Fusion will go. He doesn't need to do much else. There's already plenty of damage on the field.
He can reset Branded Opening, he can reset Branded Retribution, or he can use Retribution to reset one of his branded spells. He can. Yeah, he's going to add red. He just has so much here.
Yeah, adding the red allows him to play around cards such as Effect Veiler once the materials are actually sent to the grave. So Cam understands he doesn't need the additional value from setting something like Banishment. He's going for game right now, making sure he's safe through as many interruptions as possible. And Pete is choosing to concede. He sees the writing on the wall.
When I saw you know the trap, I was like, all right, he's going to get everything off. That was a really good card.
That was the part when you built the trap. That was I feel like the adding instant fusion at the end phase with no way to stop instant fusion was the writing on the wall. Pretty much Mirror Jade sending Abelonatus was just game over from there.
Yeah, I think the only way Pete could have really stayed in this game is if he activated starter and Cam did not chain Brandon red, and then he would have been able to put the carrot on the field. But even then, he was still playing from behind because he couldn't effectively deal with the Chimera. He would have to find a way to smashers. But from here, I think Cameron taking a very solid Game 1 lead. And we'll be moving on into Game 2. What do you think Pete's strategy is now? He will be able to go first. What do you think he's going to try to do now he's knowing that he's playing against Brandon? Well,
it's kind of tough. I mean, you're playing against a 60-card deck. This is definitely a deck he probably hasn't faced up to this point, despite already having played 12 rounds. But you're probably familiar with all the strategies, maybe not all in the same deck together. But you know, the Brandon deck has been around for quite some time now, so you kind of know what those cards are doing. He was able to kind of witness the ideas that Cam has here in this Game 1. So maybe he's going to be looking for stuff like Dimension Shifter, still really, really good. And when you're using sprites, while you need to have monsters in your graveyard to summon back with Sprite Alpha stuff, it doesn't completely derail your strategy to activate something like Dimension Shifter. So that's going to be a key one I'm looking for. Anti-Spell Fragrance will probably still put in some work, as that card was really good against Branded in general. But then you have the Bestial, the other engines in the deck can like kind of recover from those cards as well.
So that's the interesting one, right? Dimensional Shifter, when you're going first, it's going to hinder your plays a little bit. You're not going to be able to go for the swap frog line. You're not going to be able to set up too much. You're probably going to pick either red or carrot and try to rely on those. And that's the thing, when you're up against the Branded strategy, you really want to go for carrot. You just never want to let Branded Fusion resolve, because it will always require 2 additional cards for you to really deal with the monster that comes out of it.
Yeah, I mean, that's the biggest thing is Branded Fusion, man. It's such a good card.
Now, we say that, though, those interactions are not good versus the tier limit part of the strategy. So what are you going to do? How do you make a choice? Which part of the engine will he have more of a focus in his hand?
It reminds me a lot of like the True Draco Zodiac deck. Like, yeah, you can have Forbidden Apocrypha and Dimensional Barrier for the Zodiac half, but when I'm true summoning Masterpiece, what are you going to do about Masterpiece? That's why I like these big like conglomerate decks where you're combining all these strategies together. Like, you can take, because each strategy has its own weaknesses, right? And then you can take other strategies and kind of make it a little bit better, a little more well-rounded. And working out for Cam so far with 10 wins, 2 losses leading up to the top cut.
I wonder how many times Shifter's been activated on him, and he just activates Branded Fusion, makes a Mirror Jade anyway. Not that you can activate it immediately, but like potentially if it leaves the field, it will still wipe your opponent's field as well. And if it does survive a turn, then all of a sudden it's Mirror Jade again. So
yeah, exactly. And you can also like send like Despian Tragedy if he's playing it or something and get a search off of it. Maybe not. No, there might be a copy in there.
Yeah, there's a full suite of. He just threw every engine in there, man.
A little bit of Despia, a little bit of Branded. I mean, Aluber, you know, is kind of a crossover between Despia and Branded. A Despia monster that adds Branded spells and traps.
Yeah.
They usually tend to work really well together. They're pretty much the same theme.
Yeah, you can basically say so. These hybrid strategies always prove to be really strong at dealing with a more rogue and fair strategies, but we'll just have to see how Pete handles that in game 2.
Yeah, one of the downsides of playing 60 cards though is like when you go to side deck, you have to side deck a lot of cards because you end up like to be able to see those options.
Looks like Pete's hand is not too bad. There's a copy of Nimble Beaver, Swap Frog, I think a Fenrir as well.
Normal summon.
Opting to normal summon Swap Frog first. So I had to be wrong on the Fenrir then, if we're not leading with that.
Yeah, I think so. I also thought I saw a Fenrir, but I think it might just have been a reflection. So
Oh, there was actually a Magnamut, I think, instead. It was a Bestial monster.
that makes sense. So Swap Frog going to send down Swap Frog. That's all he can really send down. I mean, he can still send other frogs, but usually just see 3 Swap Frogs in the decks.
Yeah, Dupe Frog is still very useful now, especially if you're not expecting super polymerization to be a big part of the format. Then you can protect the Totally Awesome a lot more.
That's really why it fell out of favor, right? Because when Sprite first came out, a lot of people were just doing that, where they summon the Dupe Frog with the Totally Awesome, and then you have that protection, but you play really hard into super polymerization. But Sprite Blue is going to be special summoned to add Sprite Red.
Yep, already having Jet in hand, being able to be a little bit safer with his plays. I wonder if he's going to go for starter and then just try to set up the carrot, but no, he's going straight for double cross.
I was talking with him before this match while I was watching the match that was still ongoing, and he was like, man, I just love Sprite double cross. And he was telling me about a couple plays he did previously in the tournament. We'll have to see if that comes up here. If you're not familiar with the Sprite cards, they're pretty good. As long as you have a level 2 or sometimes a rank 2, link 2, or just, something that involves the number 2. You can special summon these cards from your hand, and then they all do something on summon or interact with the opponent in some way. But we're going to see a link summon of Jet and Blue for Sprite Sprint. Sprite Sprint will be able to send a level 2 monster from his deck to the graveyard.
That's fine.
This is the new combo that you're able to do post Darkwing Blast. Angler's going to trigger 2 special summon 2 Nimble Beavers from the deck to the field.
We can understand why Pete is such a big fan of Sprite double cross, especially in a matchup like this. We mentioned earlier how the Sprite strategy previously has had a really tough time dealing with something along the lines of Branded because of Mirror Jade. But double cross is a pretty good answer, able to attach it as a material to a rank 2 that already exists on the field.
Yeah, it's one of the best forms of removal because you're removing a card from the field, but it's no longer leaving the field. It's becoming a material.
Right, you're not putting it in the graveyard means you can't access it for other plays. There's a lot you can do with that because, I mean, you could just do. There's a flurry of options, right? You could take their monsters that they need in the graveyard for some of their fusion plays. You could take the Libellion on the field even. Just take them. I think in response to Branded Fusion, it has several different options of how to just make the card not resolve properly.
Certainly, and it looks like Gigantic Sprite is going to summon Hyperia here, so he's going to get to draw a card. Hyperia just says, if this card is summoned, draw 1 card once per turn. Simple enough. Simple yet strong.
Yeah, we talk about those draw effects, right? Like, they may not be immediately useful, but you have to assume if a card draws a card, it'll be played someday. You can't even count Cup of Ace out.
You really can't. And now we're going to see a Link summon. He was Link summon for Sprite Elf. Sprite Elf is going to bring back the other Swap Frog, so he'll have the 2 Aquas he can use to make Totally Awesome.
Sprite Sprint is actually also another great utility tool. I think Pete is just showing his knowledge of the matchup here. He is clearly had some kind of education on how to deal with the branded strategy, because he now has Sprite Sprint, which also is able to detach from Gigantic Sprite to be able to bounce any of those pesky fusion monsters and not trigger their effects in graveyard when they leave the field.
It's definitely a cool interaction. Sprite Sprint is just a fantastic card.
It's rare that you see Sprint and Elf on the field at the same time at turn 1.
Draw phase reactor?
Yeah.
That's good.
So branded opening going to start things off for Cam, and now at resolution he's going to discard Edge of Chain. So branded opening is going to add a Despia monster. And we see a lot of those side deck cards from Cam there on the bottom of his deck. I saw some Seer Modes and Lava Golems. And now, after this resolves, he'll be able to add Fright for Patrick to his hand since Edge of Chain was sent to the graveyard.
Yeah, able to form a chain link as well to potentially protect whichever one he wants to prioritize. Probably the Aliber, if I had to guess. Yep.
Yep, a Luber special summons to the field in defense mode thanks to opening. So chain link 1 to Luber, chain link 2 Edge of Sabers, Edge of Chain.
It looks like
I
there
went
is
to
a
the
copy.
OG for a second, Edge of Sabers.
Edge of Sabers still a pretty good card, but Edge of Chain is the one you want in this situation. Pete, it looks like he has a copy of Infinite Impermanence that he's contemplating using on the Aliber here. Wants to cut off access.
1, 2, yes.
Yeah, it's tough. Do you use the Imperm here? Do you try and save it for like a Lubellion or something? But when Lubellion's on the field, there's a lot of ways to chain to get it off the field so it'll still resolve.
Looks like he's using Toe to negate the effect of Chain.
So just trying to cut him off from any more adding.
Depending on how strong Cam's hand is, that was honestly a very favorable trade.
Resolution, everything totally awesome.
And then Toad's going to set the Edge.
Target's going to be beaten.
It's in the graveyard. You can't destroy it, so he
Oh
can't
yeah,
reset
that's
it.
right. It needs to be destroyed. Oh, he's targeting with the add back from his hand with the Toad.
I got 3 cards in hand.
Correct.
Strong follow-up, getting Beaver back. I always thought Beaver was a better card to add back than Diva was, because you're able to summon back from the graveyard.
Yeah, that's really important, especially with new cards coming out in a couple of weeks that are going to end up milling cards off your deck. You're going to need to be able to summon them back from your graveyard.
There is a copy of Brandon High Spirits in Cam's hand. If he has a Tearlament monster to go along with it, he can push his plays further, but I don't think I see one. Oh, but he's activating it. It does not reveal for cost. There is no cost to this card, so once it resolves, then you know what's happening. Yep, he's actually going to be sending the Serenir, the original use of the High Spirits, to send a Dragon monster, going to send Albal and Nodus. Not going to be immediately useful, but at the end phase, you know, it lets you go a little further, potentially set up Branded Fusion next turn. But we'll see if Pete allows Cameron to have a next turn.
Descent? That's fine.
Yep, going to trigger Albalanos to add at the end phase. Now he's going to use Albion's effect to send.
Looks like Branded Retribution.
Yep, and he's going to be able to put Albion to the bottom and draw a new card.
Can the trap be used to turn it sent, or you have to wait?
Yes, I can.
The Retribution can, in fact, be used immediately once it's in the graveyard.
3 now.
Oh, he put the Albion right back in his hand. It was the Albion's effect that put the Retribution. No, it was the Serenir's effect, I guess.
Oh,
Yeah,
we
yeah.
forgot about the Serenir. He hasn't
Yeah, yeah.
used the Albion yet. Okay. I was like, wait a minute. I don't think Cam would make a mistake like that.
Yeah, like I think he wants to draw here.
Wow, this is a cool like combo. So
Yeah.
Brandon High Spirits, discarding the Serenir, gets to send down the trap that will add back a Brandon spell, and then the Albion gets to send the spell you're going to want to add back. And you get to draw.
So this is interesting. Okay, because this was a main phase effect. Albion did have to be used in the main phase. High Spirits was used prior. Pete has the option to now chain the effect of Sprite Elf in response to summon back the Totally Awesome because there's an Aliber on Cameron's side of the field. So now this Branded Fusion not necessarily going to be able to resolve here. Cameron needs to dig deep to find an answer to this field.
It is funny. We do see all 3 Sprite extra deck monsters just next to each other on Pete's side.
This is a war of the archetypes, man. He's trying to show off like which of the powerful engines he can use. The Sprite cards, I always call them weenies, but they get the job done.
They really do. Gigantic Sprite, it gets pretty big though.
Not yet.
Not right now. Definitely only gets the double attack when he has that extra deck monster underneath it.
Well, I mean, maybe with Double Cross you get there.
Oh, but he has Lava Golem for the Toad.
This is the best use of it, able to take away the Gigantic Sprite as well as the Totally Awesome. Takes away both Xyz monsters, so Sprint will no longer have its effect, and Double Cross is cut off from being able to take a monster and putting it under it. It is now mainly going to be used as a Reborn, which is still really good for Totally Awesome if he just shotguns it right now. I think he has to.
2 now, right?
Looks like he is taking a moment to consider his options. Looks like he's going to use Retribution to add back Branded Fusion.
Unless I'm misremembering what Double Cross does, I feel like he should be able to summon
I
totally.
think it might be to a link, zone the link monster points to.
Ah.
So since the elf is in the sprint zone, it might not happen.
That is unfortunate. Oh, and there's Branded Retribution as well.
Branded regain.
Oh yeah, sorry, that one. Yeah.
He did just use retribution though.
Okay.
And Infirm, what's it called?
It almost looked like he was about to put it, like, this is the imperm column, right? I want to make sure I activate it here. But see, I usually try to activate as far away from the column as possible. But I guess there's another trap in that column. So really, you only had two options.
Yeah, that's one for it.
It really looked like he was about to do it, though. But Branded Fusion, a powerful fusion spell, lets you send materials from your deck
What is the second toad advance?
to summon a Fallen Alabaz fusion monster. Let's see if he's going to send down Fallen Alabaz and the Beastal Lubellion.
I feel like he still needs to be somewhat careful. Maybe if Pete has any one of those bestial monsters of his own, or if there's just any form of interaction from the hand, he needs to be careful about what he tries to trigger here.
That's very true. You always have to keep in mind what the Bestials could do and how they could impact your turn.
I think because that Lubellion does make the most sense, though, because even if something does get interrupted, Lubellion doesn't resolve or Albion doesn't resolve, Lubellion summoning it back from grave, sending the Albion, ends on actually multiple interruptions, especially with the regain.
Yeah, this is the combo. This is the one we've been waiting for. The Aluber with Branded Fusion, it does so much. So now he's going to use Albion's effect, where he's going to be able to banish Fallen Albaz and a Dark to summon Lubellion.
There's plenty of Dark monsters in the grave, but he could use the Aluber on the field if he really wants to.
Yeah, that's like that turn one play we were doing a couple weeks ago. Really, this is the power of like the Beast of Lubellion in the Branded strategy. Just if your Branded Fusion resolves, it's tough for your opponent to come back. But it looks like Pete does have a bestial monster. It is Magamut, so he'll be able to chain its effect to. It's a quick effect since Cam has monsters on the field, and he can banish a lighter dark monster from either player's graveyard to special summon it to the field.
He's going to go after the Fallen of Albaz here, just at least cutting off the Mirror Jade from being summoned, assuming Cameron doesn't have a copy of Albaz in his hand. And I think that's reasonable. But
He gets to draw a card with Branded Regain. He gets to put the Albaz back and draw a card if he wants.
yeah, but I think with this line of play, he was going to be able to draw a card no matter what.
Yeah, I mean, Albion is going to banish something.
I think he can use this effect now to actually summon back the Serenir as well, because the monster was summoned.
Looks like he's thinking about going for Masquerade the Blazing Dragon.
That could prove problematic.
This is gonna have to get out.
Yeah.
Yeah, it looks like he's banishing the Aluber as well as the Edgem Chain.
Masquerade, very easy to summon, just needs a Destiny monster plus a light or a dark monster.
It applies a lot more pressure than people would really think. 600 damage per action is a lot.
Yeah, especially if you just get two Masquerades on the field, then it becomes 1,200. You only have about like 6 effects you can activate.
And I think it's extremely worthwhile in a matchup like this, where especially you have a battle phase right now. I'm surprised that the Magnum was summoned in defense, knowing that well, it just has weaker defense, right? It's 25,000. So the Albion, or like the Lubellion that's going to be summoned using this Albion will be able to attack over. And it's no longer threatening the Masquerade like easily.
Did Cam use Branded Regain? I don't think so.
No, he has not.
So battle phase is going to attack over Sprite Sprint.
Yeah. And then
Yep. A lot of incremental damage here.
another,
25, right?
yeah, another level.
No, level, so 22.
Yep,
Push
taking
it
22 and 600, dropping them down
52.
28.
Yeah. 52 that you can.
Manifest two.
Yeah.
Going to be able to send the Albion now, summon the Lubellion.
This is the best part of the combo. It's like you get to root out that dragon, you're going to get that effect. You get the Lubellion effect to activate Branded Beast. Normally the Branded Beast can activate Branded Regained from the graveyard, but it's already on the field.
I wonder, does he play a copy of Starving Venom as well to really capitalize on the banishment that he can get off of the Albion that's now in the grave? Don't forget, the Albinotus is also going to be able to search a fusion spell at the end phase as well that he was sent all the way from High Spirits like several actions ago.
So he has Masquerade inflicting damage, and it also can come back if it's dealt with, but then it won't inflict damage because it only inflicts damage when it's fusion summoned. He has the Branded Beast, which he can tribute to destroy a card. Branded Regain is going to be giving him a card once per turn, and can bring back a bestial monster. The Albion setting Branded in red, and as you mentioned, Albinotus is also going to add a fusion spell at his end phase.
Yeah, he did miss a couple effects of Regained here, not getting the reborn effect and not getting the.
Target your blue. Yeah.
This is actually extremely strong as well, going for the Druid Worm right now. If he opts to use Branded Beast, he's able to clear the Lava Golem as well as the Magnamut.
Yeah, on the upside, Pete does have the Magnum effect, so he'll be able to add a dragon during the end phase.
Oh, he's opting to use the Regained right now to put the blue back to the bottom of the deck and then draw a card.
Oh, so that's smart. Yeah, he knew he was going to eventually banish the card out of his graveyard. And like I said, it triggers on your opponent's turn. You can just get that card out so he doesn't have to worry about a Sprite Elf bringing it back right away.
I wonder what he's going to go for off of the Albion. Banishment is usually the most sensible choice.
That's fine.
But he knows that Magnamut is going to resolve, adding likely another bestial monster for Pete, likely a Druid Worm himself. So Banishment is less useful. Maybe he goes for just adding Branded Fusion and Instant Fusion for the next turn instead.
We'll have to see. Patchwork is adding Polymerization and Edge of Chain.
Unless Cameron decides he wants to draw more cards and goes for a Chimera right now.
This deck is so good. I love it. This was my deck I was looking forward to seeing the most this weekend. We hadn't got to see it up to this point, but now I've seen it in action. I'm like, yeah, this deck is good. I knew it was. I knew it.
It's very powerful when it's allowed to play.
No tears this game.
Who needs them?
This is really showing you don't have to play tier element in this strategy. You could just be playing pure branded bestial, and it works pretty much the same way. Well, and
I think
branded bestial.
The main thing that the tier limits really add to this deck is what happens if your Branded Fusion gets ashed, right?
Mm-hmm.
All of a sudden, your deck doesn't really do much of anything anymore.
Then you have the Sharon and stuff to extend.
Yeah, like the tier limit monsters just make it so there's not any one thing that you can do to stop them, except maybe Shifter, but then you still have Branded Fusion.
Yep, and it looks like he is going to opt for the Polymerization, Fusing Masquerade, and the 2 other cards for Guardian Chimera. I think it's 2 on the field and 1 in hand.
Yeah.
So it's going to destroy 2 cards on the field, and you'll draw 1. And since that Polymerization is in the graveyard, the Guardian Chimera is untargetable.
The Edge of Chain cannot activate, let's remember, because it is once per turn, and it was negated with a Totally Awesome in the very first action of this game, of this turn. Yeah.
Well, the activation was negated, right?
Yeah.
Oh, is it only used, or is it activated?
It's a monster effect, so I can assume it's only use. It's a very easy thing for Cameron to forget here. I don't expect him to remember because it's been a very long turn and he's been navigating it extremely well and making it out of that very strong position.
How much time's left?
Yeah, all right, it is used.
The 1 card drawn was, in fact, a Merly, which unfortunately normal summon has been used for the Lava Golem. Not necessarily a normal summon, but Lava Golem does give you the restriction that you can no longer normal summon that turn.
No, I milled this one earlier.
He did discard it for the effect of Branded Opening.
I will go to end phase. The what? It was a...
That was this one.
Was it?
Yeah, so you actually searched up.
It was.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Yeah, it's easy fix.
It's a very easy fix.
You can just put the Frightful Patchwork back. It has no implication into this game.
Yeah, this should not affect at all. It's a very easy fix. We caught it right now.
It was a long turn, I forgot.
Well, it's in the beginning of the turn, I know.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'll be an easy fix. It literally just happened. The only thing that happened was you drew the 1 other card. So even if you want, you could put that other card back and easily, it's still a random card off the top of your deck.
All the decks have so much that's going on right now. So
Yeah. Honestly, it was a very amazing turn. Like at the beginning of the turn, I thought Pete had so many answers to the Branded strategy that he put on the field, but they were just not.
I think the big turning point was that Lava Golem.
The Lava Golem was perfect. It cut off 3 cards at once. So I think Cam just played his hand to the best of his ability, had to navigate a really difficult turn, and it's really easy to forget those small things that were used, especially like, I think that was action 2 of a 20 action turn.
Yeah, I think it might have been his, the first activation was opening, and then the discard of Edge of Change. So yeah, action 2 for sure. But yeah, we're just going to take a minute to talk to judges to resolve the situation. Should be very easily resolved. It's not like, it literally just happened, and nothing's really happened since then. He drew 1 card, but he had no other cards in his hand, so it's not like there's anything to like shuffle up to where we don't know what he drew or anything. But we'll give the judges a moment to take it out. But man, am I glad we're seeing this deck here. All weekend I've been trying to like look through the deck types. I'm like, who's playing the branded stuff? I want to see branded Bestial. Like I was so hyped about this deck, and now like maybe just a lot of players didn't know like how good this was, because it really wasn't a deck we saw, you know, overseas when people that had these cards before us really capitalize on. But that's because like on their Forbidden Limited list, they don't have branded Fusion might be at 1. Like they have a lot more restrictions on those cards, but branded Fusion is still one of the best Yu-Gi-Oh cards in the game.
Absolutely. So for those, because we didn't get to see it just solely, we had a lot of other engines playing off at once. Let's explain what branded Fusion does now off just a single activation. Just to make it easier, let's say we normal summon Aliber, right?
That's the best scenario.
Yeah.
Let's start with the Luber, yeah. You need the dark.
You need a dark monster, and you need another card in hand. So let's say we normal summon Aliber, we add Branded Fusion, we activate Branded Fusion. Instead of sending Tragedy, we're going to send Albaz and the Bestial Lubellion, and then you summon Albion, the Branded Dragon.
Yep.
Yeah, not the Shrouded Dragon, not the main deck monster. We summon that, use its effect, banishing the Albaz in the graveyard and any dark. In this case, let's say the Aliber on the field, and then you're able to summon the other Lubellion from the extra deck. Use its effect, discard any random card, fusing the Lubellion on the field, as well as the Albaz that's banished. Now you have Mirror Jade and Albion, but you're not done yet. You're going to use the effect of the Lubellion in the graveyard, special summon itself, not an activated effect, by sending the Albion on the field. The Albion will be able to use its effect during the end phase, but Lubellion, now that it's on the field, is going to be able to activate a branded spell trap from the deck. You're going to pick Branded Beast, right? So now you have Branded Beast, you have Lubellion on the field, so it's live. You can be able to send it to destroy any card on the field. You have Mirror Jade, which we all know what Mirror Jade does. And then during the end phase, Albion will get you any other piece for your branded engine. Almost certainly you're going to get Branded Banishment, which is able to summon back the Albion, the Branded Dragon, which was summoned properly this time. And rarely a card that you see summoned properly, but now it always will be. So you're able to summon that back, use it to fuse with your opponent's field, or you could just leave it there, use it for Branded Beast, keep cycling for the next engine, and just banish your opponent's monsters, because now Garura is such a fantastic card. There's so many targets. It's just another super polymerization that you're searching, all with one card.
Yeah, and on top of that, if you happen to discard the Bestial Saronir from that one discard from the Lubellion, you also get to send down that Branded Regain. And Branded Beast during the end phase lets you activate a continuous Branded spell trap from your graveyard to the field, so you also get a Branded Regain on top of that as well. Or if you just happen to open up with a Bestial Lubellion, you can discard it to add the Saronir to set that play up. And that, yeah, just all off just a Luber, which is why I expected this deck to be all over the place. But maybe the players out there weren't as aware of this combo as I thought they might be going into this weekend.
I think the major concern when you talk about Branded ever is the restriction of Branded Fusion, right? Everyone wants to be able to summon Abyss Dweller.
Okay, there you go.
Hierolaments is such a popular deck this season, and I just think the ability to summon Abyss Dweller really puts the deck forward. Although, I want to say in this tournament, we haven't even seen that many Abyss Dwellers. The Bestial monsters just make it really difficult to summon anything.
But when we did see Abyss Dweller, they were quite impactful, though.
Yeah, like Abyss Dweller does turn off the deck really easily, and I think that's something that people wanted to rely on. It makes games a lot easier, and I don't blame them for trying to forgo the Branded Engine, because the Branded Engine also, if you only have the Branded Engine and your Branded Fusion does get met with something along the lines of Ash Blossom, Joy Spring, or just anything to really interact with.
That Fusion board just turns into a Luber.
Yeah, which is why the Tearlament cards are necessary, and you have to have that supplemental engine to really push through. And then you have to deal with the Sprite Carrots of the world, so it's not just Ash Blossom, even though Ash Blossom is falling in popularity, but we've seen it a couple of times now in the feature match, and it's always been pretty relevant.
Yeah, I think a lot of the players who like made the top cut were including stuff like Ash Blossom. Like, I definitely thought it wasn't a card a lot of players were keeping in their main deck, but maybe now with, you know, Sprite Starter, a lot of those cards that you can actually Ash, even just ashing maybe a field spell like Primeval Planet, like, you're going to be able to use it now. So, and the fact that the Branded Fusion is the realm of possibility, you really don't want to face down that deck without an Ash Blossom.
So what do you think that version of the deck's worst matchup is?
For Branded? Well, Cam's version seems to fill all those like holes pretty well, but it's gonna have to be some sort of like anti-meta strategy where you're just having the constant like multiple things that are preventing you from playing, like with anti-spells, like layers upon layers of interruptions. But you know, the Bestial cards also, you know, capitalize on that really well. It's really tough to counter the strategy. What do you have anything in mind you might work well against the like the Branded deck?
I have to just start thinking about what works against the Tearlament strategy and see if there's anything that doubles up, because you need to be able to deal with the Tearlament part too. So I immediately think, okay, Exorcister, okay, Fluanderies. Exorcister, probably pretty good into a Branded Fusion. You're able to activate multiple effects to get those guys on the field. But then if they're having to deal with the Mirror Jade, they can remove the Mirror Jade, but again, we talk about this all the time when we see Exorcister. The Mirror Jade's going to remove all of them, and they have to work really hard to get those back. It's not like the other decks that just recur them naturally. So that, I think the Branded engine takes care of it. But in case you haven't been seeing all the cool events that you can check out, don't forget to check out the Speed Duel GX box with the potential Speed Duel GX Midterm Paradox game mat featuring Elemental Hero Tempest.
That mat is sick. I'm a big fan of all the Speed Duel Celebration mats. For the Duel Academy box is Ancient Gear Golem. I have that one. I play on it all the time. It's really, really cool. Elemental Hero Tempest, an iconic Elemental Hero from GX era. And the Midterm Paradox box, really fantastic upgrades for, a lot of Speed Duel decks ready to play out of the box. If you're interested in Speed Duel, you should definitely check it out. Just go to your local OTS. A lot of the Speed Duel products you can just buy out of the box. It has pre-constructed decks you're ready to play with, along with additional cards you can add in to boost up those decks, or you can just take the Speed Duel cards and add them to the deck you already have and play in our constructed tournaments. We have lots of Speed Duel public events. There's even like Speed Duel main events that have their own prizes that you can't get when you're playing the trading card game, including awesome playmats like we just saw for that celebration event.
Yeah, there are some exclusive playmats that are only available for Speed Duel, featuring some really iconic monsters from the GX era. We saw Destiny Hero Plasma on one. We saw Flame Wingman, which has some main game mats, but it's really cool to see some of these new mats that give attention to some of the game's favorite monsters. And I remember Speed Duel when it first came out, I thought, okay, a little too slow for me. I don't really want to go back to basic Yu-Gi-Oh! But now, with all these additional sets adding to the card pool, I think things have gotten a lot more exciting, and it's a very interesting format to play alternative to the main constructed format. Yeah,
it's similar to Duel Links where you have like a skill also, so the skills get to change the way you use cards from the past as well. It's really a lot of fun. I would definitely highly suggest checking out Speed Duel. And obviously, you don't have to you just play, like I said, with your friends, just going in and buying it right out of the box. A lot of fun, ready to go to play right away. And like the Midterm Paradox box, I really like because the episode that it's focused on is one of my favorite episodes of all time from the GX era. It's actually a two-parter because it's so good. You're not ready for this. You're so not ready for this. I say it twice because this box is twice as nice. The Midterm Paradox box. The episode is really cool because the episode starts off. Let me just tell this for you. So it's Cyrus and Jaden, right? Cyrus just doesn't think he has what it takes. Cyrus just doesn't believe in himself. And Jaden's just like, you just got to believe, Cyrus. You got to believe in yourself. So they end up, Crowler, not a big fan of the Slifer Slackers from the beginning of the season, wants to get Jaden out of there. So he brings in, contract workers, the Paradox Brothers, to come and defeat Jaden and Cyrus. And if Jaden loses, he's out of Duel Academy. But Cyrus, he talks him up. They have to work together. And the whole time, Jaden's like, just believe in yourself, buddy. And what does he do? Cyrus believes in himself. UFO Ride Fighters. The next thing you know, it happens. And it's such a great episode. If you haven't checked it out, definitely go check out the GX series. Or if you want to learn about that, you're not ready for this, Yu-Gi-Oh! 7s, the newest Yu-Gi-Oh! Anime. I'm a huge fan. It's featuring Rush Duels. Luke, one of my favorite anime characters of all time from any of the Yu-Gi-Oh! Series, Multi-Strike Dragon, Dragius. And if you're interested in Rush Duels, we have an awesome Switch game. It's called Dawn of the Battle Royale. It's really, really cool. You can check out, the Rush Duel universe has the characters from the show Yu-Gi-Oh! 7s. My favorite part of Yu-Gi-Oh! 7s is also the dual disc. It's in the shape of the 7. It's really, really cool. But you definitely want to check that out. Yeah, big fan of Luke. We're going from Speed Duel to Rush Duel, kind of similar. Let's go ahead and talk about what's online. Asala, tell me what first place is winning here this weekend.
First place is obviously going for that ultra rare YCS prize card, Another Verse Dragon, a really cool exclusive prize card available that you can only get from these YCS tournaments. There's going to be the Championship Series trophy. There's a premium messenger bag. There's a Switch and custom Switch case, the Legacy of the Duelist Link Evolution download code, and you were just talking about this, the Rush Duel Dawn of the Battle Royale download code. I got a few of those. I've been playing it here and there. It got an invite to and VIP status at the next World Championship Qualifier Tournament, and of course you get the Top Cut game mat.
Yep, that's right. 7 stars collide and burst into a supernova. I think it's, supernova. Definitely Dawn of the Battle Royale. That's so awesome. See, after you win, you're like wanting to relax. On your flight back home, just pop open your Switch and play some Dawn of the Battle Royale. Legacy of the Duelist Link Evolution is also a lot of fun. My favorite part about Legacy of the Duelist, right? I mean, people are like, oh, there's Master Duel now as well. But Legacy of the Duelist, they have something that Master Duel doesn't have. That's this Battle Pack draft, where you can actually draft cards that have Pot of Greed, Change of Heart, some cool things, and you can actually play draft games. That's mainly what I still do to this day, because it's a lot of fun.
I did that a lot in the very first version of the game that came out maybe 2015, 2016. I played it on the Xbox. I played with my friends, and we would just hit up the Battle Pack draft. Every time I get Gores, I would just be so excited.
And we're back. Looks like the situation was resolved. They figured out that they could just put the Fright for Patchwork in the deck after quite some time. Probably, a PE minor given out for activating effect that he wasn't able to activate. And now Cam just has that one card in hand.
Yep.
And now we're at the end phase. It looks like he's adding for Alba Lenatus.
Right, and I wonder what he's going to go for off the Albion as well. Oh, he's going to go for the Branded Banishment, which is going to be counteracted by the Bestial Monster that's going to be able to trigger off Pete's side. Hopefully, once he... I assume both players will remember all the effects that are happening at the end phase now, because it was a significantly long turn. So many effects were activated.
That's the one that gets special.
You can't really blame any of these players for missing one of the single effects.
And especially with something like Edge of Chain, like it's one of those weird ones where like you Fright for Patchwork adds Edge of Chain, then Edge of Chain once you use the polymerization you just added adds Fright for Patchwork, so it's kind of like gets confused which one's happening and which one added already. But neither here nor there. We've moved on. But yeah, it's kind of you're talking about the Bestial being able to stop it off the Retribution. It does the same thing for Brandon Red, being able to cut off the target and stop it completely. So the Bestial's lining up pretty well against these branded Speller traps.
Yeah, unfortunately for Cameron, if you could say it's unfortunate, he wasn't able to access his Tier Limit engine, so he wasn't able to put any more cards in the graveyard. He would have loved to just at least seen a Magma in the graveyard to be able to summon off the Branded Regain when Pete puts a monster on the field. We're starting off with Nimble Beaver,
Yes, I agree.
using the effect to try to summon from deck or graveyard.
Use regained, targeting Jerusalem.
Yeah, going to be able to meet that with Regain, summon Druid Swarm. Druid Swarm is really strong one, actually, just to put on the field, because that means the Branded Beast is dealing with 2 cards. Or
That is a really cool interaction.
now Pete is forced to make a decision. Is he going to just use his Druid Swarm to counteract his opponent's Druid Swarm and then leave himself vulnerable to banishment?
We'll have to see.
Yeah, opts to just have to let it happen.
So Drew Swarm is going
Good so far?
field. Beaver comes down from Beaver.
Pete, like, I have to wonder, if when you're in Cam in this situation, what do you expect to be in Pete's hand? Do you expect to see multiple Sprite monsters still available? Do you know what some of them are? Because it was 2 Toads adding back, so he was able to account for most likely the Swap Frog and the Beaver. So with the remaining amount of cards in hand, it looks like he is choosing to just get rid of them. No, he didn't get rid of them instantly. He's allowing him to go into Sprite Elf, which could be problematic here because it allows Pete to just generate more value from the graveyard.
Oh, so you're saying he uses the Branded Beast right away just to get the 2 Beavers off the field? Because
Yeah.
the normal summon's gone. The only thing you'd really have is the Sprite Extenders. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, like you would have to have Sprite Starter there to even try playing. Although, maybe because he knows that there's a Swap Frog in hand, all he needs is another water and he can put another level 2 on the field.
That's true.
Sure.
Activate it.
Target.
And Cam might also have a Bestial monster in his hand if he happens to target a light or dark monster here with Sprite Elf.
Jet.
Target
Yeah.
jet.
Going for the Jet here, this makes the most sense. It allows you to get more monsters onto the field.
Yeah, how many in hand right now?
Honestly, I think that was the slightest misstep from Cam when he went after the blue on the previous turn. He should have gone after the Jet, because when you know you're going to be in this position,
what?
getting the blue search is not nearly as relevant as getting the Jet search, getting you starter. When you
Oh,
know you're
okay.
able to cut off 2 bodies.
Yes. So sometimes like those little breaks can kind of fluster you and maybe take you off your game a little bit because he was playing near perfectly up until this point.
So at this point, once you know that you're going to have access to starter or smashers or just any one of those cards, actually, maybe because it's smashers, you have to force Pete to go for starter
Yeah, fine.
and then try to use Beast here. Nope, he's going to allow the Jet to resolve. And now I think he just kind of waits as long as he can. Yep, there is the Sprite Smashers, which is going to be able to answer the Beast whenever. So this is why I really think he had to use some of his effects a little bit more preemptively. Oh, Pete drew an Eradicator for turn, which makes sense because he was going first, trying to cut off all those branded spells and traps. Can be a little dangerous because you could also easily draw an all-monster hand with Tier Limits, but also if your field gets broken, drawing into it in this kind of situation, not really all that great either. But if he's able to make it live, then he's able to cut off the branded fusion on the following turn.
That's definitely important to note. Looks like we're going to see an Xyz summon here with the Sprite Elf and the Sprite Jet for Gigantic Sprite.
All right, so this is the tricky part because I do believe this is just going to force out the Beast, which if you chain Smashers, like, you are okay with it, but you are also losing the body anyway.
I'll chain beast.
Yeah, I think this is correct from Cam. He just has to use the Beast right now. It's going to force out the Smashers, but really to no benefit of Pete.
Yeah, I mean, it really just shows that, yeah, he really, that Branded Beast on the Nimble Beaver would have been much better. Because he's just basically dealing the same amount of cards, but Pete has more cards in his hand now because of the timing of it all.
Yeah, he just had to know with the Jet in the graveyard there's going to be force one way or another. But I think this is still really favorable for Cam. I think he's fine with this position.
Cards in hand.
Smashers is going to banish the sprite card, so now he can banish a level 2 or rank 2 to negate a monster effect. If he banishes an extra deck monster, it gets to also destroy.
So an interesting thing here, he can actually go for banishment, summon the Albion, fuse with the Albion and the Gigantic, and Smashers does not resolve. Because there's not going to be a level 2 monster on the field to banish.
Ooh, you're right. It looks like this is having Brand Retribution.
Targeting the Albion.
But he has the Bestial in hand, I believe.
The Albion?
Yeah, he does still have the Bestial. Gonna at least force it out of the way now. And but I think this makes sense because now your Druis Worm can go after his Druis Worm. I do not believe the Guardian Chimera can be targeted. And I think going after the Lubellion doesn't really matter.
He'll be able to use Branded Regain now.
Yeah.
And he also might want to bring the Masquerade back before the Gigantic Sprite resolves.
Does it resolve?
Yep.
Doesn't. Oh no, it's not going to resolve.
I'm going to banish from this.
Yeah, he's going to have to go after the Chimera, otherwise he's just going to be untargetable for the rest of the game.
Guardian Chimera is such a strong card.
I assume there's a polymerization in the graveyard. It was a long turn. I honestly don't remember what was in, what went in there.
Private Patchwork happened.
Okay.
That was the source of all our issues.
Yeah.
There's definitely a polymerization in there.
Okay.
Yep, using the effect of Retribution to put the Chimera back, draw a card. Or not Retribution, again, regained.
Good.
So many rebranded cards.
Both good cards.
Seen the value of both of them in both these games alone.
Macer group?
Yep.
Special summon a Swap Frog, discarding the Nimble Beaver. So now he's able to actually go into another copy of Sprite Elf, but or maybe Sprind, just depending on how many bodies are left over. Going to be able to send that Lubellion as well with the effect of Druis Worm. Oh, Dark. That's also a pretty good one.
Send this.
Druis Worm's going to send Lubellion.
Target.
Cameron did wait, I think,
You
until...
target, you could use Gigantic.
Yeah, Gigantic was
It doesn't
used.
detach. It doesn't have to detach.
Yeah, Gigantic, if it's activated, does resolve and put you under that limitation.
So
Cameron
there's
was
no targets.
actively waiting for that moment so that he can make these effects not useful.
Yeah, its effect wasn't negated, but it did not resolve.
Yeah, this basically seals the deal. He can't use the Masquerade because Gigantic resolved. Because we
Yeah, I was talking about him needing to chain it previously. Not a big deal if the turn is over here because the Masquerade, he just do it on his own turn.
Yeah, I think this game is essentially over.
So then attack your 1850.
Yep.
Yeah.
The 1850 connects, but we know that there is a copy of Branded Fusion in their hand, or Instant Fusion off the effect of Albulanatus last turn. There's only
So you're what?
unactivatable Eradicator. Cameron has free reign now to just do whatever he wants.
Yeah, he added that instant fusion. He has Brandon in red.
I'm at 6150. So you're 52?
Yes.
All right.
It looks like he has multiple bestial monsters as well. That's just a lot of damage that he could put out just not even by activating Instant Fusion. Oh, no, it's a Fallen of Albaz and a Magnumit. But both actually very strong.
Definitely.
How much time's left?
Yeah, we hear it came out with time, and it's because these players on the stage, they don't have a clock they can look at, so their only way to actually know how much time is to rely on asking. So definitely no issue with asking how much time is on the clock.
Yep. This goes directly into a Mirror Jade. Dark did not get destroyed, so it's not going to be able to use its effect.
That's the best part about Fallen on Albaz. You can actually just use its on-field effect to fuse with your opponent's monsters.
Yep. Now I assume you're just going to... okay, you can still use Magnumit. It doesn't need to be a quick effect. You can just use its regular effect now because it's your turn.
Yep.
I'll activate.
Not even having to activate this instant fusion.
Yeah, you know, he only has to do 200 points of damage. The Lubellion, or the Mirror Jade as well as the Magnumit is going to be enough. Congratulations to Cam. He'll be moving on into the top 8 of YCS Minneapolis.
With my favorite deck I've seen this weekend. Definitely. I love the Branded Bestial. Oh, man. And having the tier limits on top of that. This is the deck I was looking to do well this weekend, and now Cam is moving on to top 8. Pete Navarro, an excellent player, veteran duelist. You know, doing the best he can with what he had, but just falling a little short. Might be just